He shows her his true self. Henry's true power, one's true power, and he takes out all of the guards. He takes her into a supply closet and after showing her his 001 tattoo, tells her to stay put. She hears the alarms ring. She cannot stay put. She goes outside and hears on the dead guard's radio, people screaming and yelling. Something is wrong here. She walks around the lab and sees dead bodies everywhere. Not just of staff, but of the numbers. All the numbers are dead. She walks into the rainbow room and watches as one kills two with his mind. She attempts to run away, but he turns around and forces her to stay in the room with him. He talks over what happened in his past, the Creel House massacre, the creation of all the numbers, and more. One offers for 11 to join and escape with him, to help reshape and remake the world to make it better. But surrounded by the dead bodies of all her brothers and sisters, and previously seeing Papa on the floor, she uses her strength to say no and push one all the way to the wall. He gets up and they ready themselves to duel. A duel between two minds, a duel between 1 and 11, a duel between Henry and Jane. 11 tries to use the memory of her mother again to feel sad and angry to overpower him, but he pushes her down and around the room, eventually pushing her off the ground and doing what he did to his mother so many years ago. 11 remembers her birth, hearing her mother's voice, her mother's love, and she uses all the strength left in her to push one away and free herself from him. She continues to think about all the murdered children, all those innocent souls like herself, lives taken away, and she uses all the strength in her body, all the power in her mind, everything she has, and pushes one not through the wall, but through a gateway between dimensions, a gate into the upside down. The gate shuts and closes itself in. Dr. Brenner walks into the rainbow room with the gate now shut. He asks 11 what she's done, but 11 can't focus and faints. By using too much of her power, she's sent into a coma, losing her memories, including her speech skills. Dr. Brenner sees the videotapes and learns what happened to 11 and Henry. Henry falls through the landscape of the Upside Down, being hit by the lightning that surrounds its plane. He explores this new realm, seeing monsters running around. As he continues exploring, he sees a giant cloud of particles, a shadow that connects everything in the Upside Down, and he uses his powers on it, making it take a new form, a form of something he was obsessed with as a child, a form of a giant spider. This is his first of many changes to this plane, as Henry has no plans of dying so easily. Jim Hopper and his wife Diane Hopper had a daughter named Sarah. They ran around the park playing around until she began to hyperventilate. Hopper tried to calm her down, but sometime later it was discovered that she was diagnosed with cancer. She lost her hair and had to stay in hospital. Jim would keep a straight face for his daughter, but at the stairs close by he'd cry knowing what's gonna happen to her. The cancer consumed her and caused the death of Sarah. Jim believes the cancer was caused by a squadron coming in contact with Agent Orange during the Vietnam War when he was 18. Mostly because after coming home, he and his co-workers would try and live normal lives and set up normal families, only for their children to be stillborn or born with deformities. After a while, Jim and Diane split up and Hopper moved from the big city and returned back to his old town, Hawkins. Within Hawkins, in 1982, Hopper's old school friend Joyce gets a divorce with her husband, Lonnie Byers. Lonnie moving away to Indianapolis and Joyce raising her two sons, Will Byers and Jonathan Byers, on her own, with Lonnie never coming to events and always making excuses. Back in Hawkins' lab, 11 is breaking Coca-Cola cans. Slowly but surely, she's regaining her powers. Over time, they've been training her to become as powerful as she possibly can be. On occasion, she shows brief proof of this, such as when she kills two guards with her powers, or when she's able to listen to a conversation happening in a different room of the lab. As always, Dr. Brenner Brenner wants to push her to her limits. He puts her inside of a sensory deprivation tank to spy on someone far away from Hawkins, to spy on a Russian agent from the KGB to gain any form of information. But while inside the void, she loses contact with a Russian agent, only to find herself finding contact with something else. A monster growls at Eleven, and out of fear she runs away from the sound, begging the scientist to let her out. November 6, 1983, a day that will never be forgotten. Dr. Brenner sends Eleven back into the tank to make contact with the monster, telling her the monster cannot hurt her from wherever it is, that the monster is calling to her and wants her, so she reluctantly agrees and ventures into the void. She sees the monster and walks up to it slowly. She attempts to touch it, to make contact, and contact was made indeed. The monster screamed at Eleven, and out of fear she returned to reality, screaming her head off. Eleven uses her powers to accidentally open a gate to the Upside Down like she did years ago. This permanent gate opening has a major effect on the Upside Down, but without a moment's notice the lab descends into chaos as the monster enters through the gate, killing multiple people. Although amongst all the chaos, in a rush of adrenaline, Eleven is able to escape the lab through the pipes which Henry advised her about years ago. The monster also escapes the lab. Mike Wheeler, Dustin Henderson, Lucas Sinclair, and Will Byers are all playing Dungeons & Dragons in Mike's basement. They're all fighting the Demogorgon. Will has to make a decision between a protective spell or an offensive fireball. He chooses fireball but rolls the dice off the table. While the others look for the dice, Karen, Mike's mother, and Ted, his father, tell them it's time to pack it up and for his friends to go home as it's a school night. Will eventually finds the dice and it was a 7, which was a miss. Lucas tells him to lie to Mike about it as Dustin goes to give Nancy, Mike's sister, leftover pizza, to which she completely ignores him. Besides Mike, they all agree Nancy's changed after beginning to date Steve Harrington. When Dustin and Lucas leave, Will tells Mike alone that he truthfully missed and that the Demogorgon got Will. He leaves as the light flickers behind him. They all split off as they ride home, but as Will rides past the lab, his lights flicker and turns off itself. When the lights fix, Will looks back up on the road and sees a tall, shadowy figure turn to him. Will crashes his bike in the woods on the side of the road, and as he hears the monster growl from the street, he runs away through the woods, all the way home. Will locks the door behind him and yells around the house, wondering where Joyce and Jonathan are. He looks outside his windows only to see the figure followed him all the way home. He goes to ring the police, but the phone line is jammed and staticky. He only hears the slight growl of the monster. He looks at the door and sees the figure appear as it growls, opening the door on its own. Will drops the phone and runs outside to his shed where he knows the gun is. He scrambles to put bullets inside of the gun, and after loading it, he aims it at the door. The monster growls as it appears behind him. Will turns around and is frozen in fear when he sees the monster as the light brightens. The Demogorgon takes Will into the Upside Down. The next morning, Joyce and Jonathan realize Will didn't come home last night. She calls Karen to see if he stayed the night, but she denies this. She goes to the police station to report her son is missing. Hopper tells her not to worry, as 99% of the time, a missing child is with a parent or a relative. Hopper tells her to go and contact Lonnie, and Joyce asks that he just finds Will. Meanwhile, within Hawkins' lab, they shut off the entire east wing of the lab, quarantining and evacuating it. Dr. Brenner and other scientists investigate the area and find that the gate into the Upside Down is spreading into the lab, and they still don't know where 11 is. The missing 11 wanders the woods and walks into Benny's Burgers. She sneaks into the kitchen, eating some fries that were for other guests, but as Benny Hammond was returning from serving other customers, he sees her eating and runs in to catch her. But when he does, he realizes not only is it a girl unlike he thought, but she also has a shaved head and looked pretty beaten up. He cooks her a burger and asks her a few questions, especially due to how quickly she was munching down the food. Benny goes and calls social services about it, thinking she's either abused or kidnapped or something as such. But someone else was listening to the call and got 11's exact location. Mike, Dustin, and Lucas use a device called the Heathkit Ham Shack. Mr. Clark tells them that it can communicate to other parts of the world, such as Australia. While they're all having fun, they hear a knock at the door. Hopper interrupts as he grabs the other boys to talk to them about Will. They tell him that he might have gone down in Mirkwood. The three of them ask to help look for Will with the police, but Hopper shuts them down instantly and says they need to go home and don't go investigating on their own. Hopper and his team search the road they were talking about, and down the road's hill they find Will's bike abandoned. They go to the buyer's home to show Joyce the bike they found, and they begin investigating the house. Hopper goes and investigates their shed, turning their lights on and looking around. He sees the bullet pack open with a fuse spilling out of it. The lights break and he hears slimy movement coming from a cornered spot in the shed. He alerts the others to go and begin a search party. Jonathan and Joyce prepare missing persons posters, and Jonathan blames himself for not being there for Will. Joyce tells him that he's not to blame and for him not to do that to himself. They get a phone call and she hears only breathing and growling until she's electrocuted by the phone. Later in the day, Agent Connie Fraser arrives at Benny's. She acts as social services and shoots Benny dead. 11 runs out and the two guards come to stop her, but she kills them both as she runs wild into the woods. Mike, Dustin, and Lucas go and search for Will in the woods on their own, even after being told not to. They keep searching until they hear rustling in the woods and run into 11. They sneak 11 into Mike's basement, and after giving her some clothes for her to change into, 11 shows him her 011 tattoo and reveals that's her name, Mike nicknaming her L. After searching for Will the entire night, the police and volunteers still have no clues. Hopper arrives at the Byers and she tells them about the burn phone. Joyce tells him that she heard breathing, and not just any breathing, but Will's breathing. Hopper decides to go to Lonnie's because Joyce didn't hear from him. Jonathan also tries to go, but Hopper tells him to stay put. They all continue their search throughout the day. Mike goes to check on 11 and give her some food.